There's missing
Yeah.
one.
All right,
Yeah,
you're
right.
muted.
We're good.
And so, just as a reminder, because we're on there, try to speak into the mic,
Oh, yeah.
otherwise folks can't hear. Yeah.
I gotta remember not to swear.
Call this meeting to order. Roll call.
You wanna take the?
Oh, yes, that's right. I'm taking minutes, aren't I?
Look at you.
I am. Katie? Here. Kelly? Here. Jason?
Here.
Matt is excused. Mandy is here and Randy.
Here.
Okay.
Any agenda revisions or approval for last?
So, yeah,
For this week?
either
For the
revisions
agenda.
or approval of this agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second. I think Kelly beat me to it.
Vote. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. The continued discussion regarding general operations.
Consideration of approving minutes.
Yeah,
first.
so the minutes are what's the highlighted?
Oh, we weren't sure how to spell.
Okay,
those
that's what I
names.
thought.
Yeah,
It was spelled.
So, and I know Fred,
Rickenbach is right.
we weren't sure how to spell your name, so they're highlighted in the minutes.
Yeah.
That's a reminder. Yeah, is that interesting?
I liked that, yeah.
Yeah, beard.
Oh, okay, so no H,
Oh,
no H, no H and
W-A-R-T.
A-R-T.
Okay,
Yep.
Oh, I
we'll
will,
correct
yep.
that. And then is Rich right?
Yeah, that's
back
right.
here.
That's spelled right.
You spelled it
Yeah,
right?
that's,
is
I
right
think
in the
that's
minute.
correct.
All right, we're good now. We'll have yours correct.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended with the last name of Beerworth.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. How's the continued discussion?
Now it's, yep, now it's the discussion.
Continued discussion regarding general operation millage and other funding sources.
So at the last meeting, you all gave me kind of a list of things to gather and put together for the packet.
Nice job.
And so most of it's in there. I think I'm still missing a couple of things that you asked for, but this is what I could get together in the few days that we had.
No, you got on that and it was, you did it great. Thank you.
I also asked that Brienne Lindsay be here, who is our equalization director, because she is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to Headley and the fraction and how things roll back and establishing taxable value and those sorts of things. So I asked Brienne to be here to kind of join in on the conversation, explain some things to this board and to all of you. So in your packet is just a PowerPoint that kind of talks about Headley Proposal A, what that means for Benzie County, the breakdown and kind of the history of how some of the things have went along since 1982. And then you had asked me for a list of county service enhancements, as in like, what could the funding be used for? If we were to change and roll back up, I should say. And so in here is a long list of various capital needs, the feasibility and growth opportunities for EMS, animal control, and solid waste and recycling, 24-hour road patrol, court security, countywide planning and zoning, water sewer opportunities, parks and recreation management and maintenance, economic and community development opportunities, and then in-house services versus contracted services. Benzie County over time has went to contracted services for some of their different departments to save funds along the way as the village continued to roll back. So one of the items would be to really look into that and say, you know, what is going to best meet the needs and the wants of the community? Is it an in-house, department, or is it a contracted service? We further provided various spreadsheets in here, and what these spreadsheets do is they show you the maximum that we collected, and then it shows you how much could have been collected, but we couldn't because of the rollback. So the first one is 2023. It lists all the individual jurisdictions and then the county as a whole, because as you know, we have two separate millages that have rolled back along the way. And so just looking at these, they're all the same as far as what information is provided. It's just based on that year. So looking at the 2023, just starting with Elmira at the top, you can see in 1982, Elmira Township started at 1.21. They've rolled back now to 0.6907. And as you go across there, you'll see taxable value, how much they collected in taxes, how much they could have collected in taxes if it was rolled back to the 1.21, and then the difference there. So that shows you what the potential could have been if there was resets along the way since 1982. So those various pages show you that information. Further in your packet, you're going to see just excerpts from Brianne's equalization report. What this does is it indicates the taxable value for 2024. It also gives a various array of information regarding the county and the townships and the different property classes we have here in Benzie County to try to give some context as to how Brianne comes up with her numbers for taxable value and those sorts of things. And then the final few pages are the budget at a glances. You had asked to just show really what the money is going towards. And so we put out these budget at a glances every single year. And what this does is it gives you a high level snapshot of where your funding, where the funding is going for Benzie County and what services it's providing to the community. It also has a list of all the individual millages on there and their expiration dates. And last but not least are the L4029s, just for the county. I didn't have the ones with all the townships as well. So these are just for counties. And these L4029s are adopted every single year by the Board of Commissioners. Every year, the Board of Commissioners has the opportunity to levy less than the maximum allowable. So you'll recall on the ballot, when you propose any sort of millage, it says up to or maximum of. Every year, the county board as well as the local township boards have the opportunity to levy less than the maximum. I always say you levy what you need, not what you want. And so you'll notice on the L4029s last year specifically regarding the school and resource officer, we actually levied much less than we could have because we didn't need the money. So we could have levied 0.18 on the school and youth resource officer. We only levied 0.015 because we didn't need that extra funding for that specific purpose. As a reminder, the special millages are specific, so they can't be used for anything other than what that millage language details on that ballot. So school and youth resource officer is just that. It's for the provision of the school and youth resource officers. Jail is jail, and so on. So that's the information I provided. I guess where do you want to start, or what questions is there?
I have a question. And maybe this is for Brianne, but how is the maximum millage allowable calculated for each separate township and then county?
If you want to, yeah. If you want to sit and join the conversation, Brianne, so you don't have to stand the whole time. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So the maximum allowable, so that's going to be every single time when you have a vote, you're gonna decide what your starting amount is. And then every year you have to roll back by
Right.
Headley.
Right.
And so that's gonna carry over every single year. So your ending value for your prior year will be your starting value for the coming year.
So I guess what I'm looking at is all of the differences from township to township, in that maximum, look at the first one from
Oh, he wants to know why they're not the
2023.
same.
Okay.
What's that?
You're wanting to know why they're not all the same?
Well, yeah, I mean, just how does that work?
Are you on for 2023?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so they all started at 1.21.
right.
And then over the years, they have rolled back. Now, the thing is that not every unit rolls back at the same amount because it is based on their
Gotcha.
taxable values.
There you go.
So
Okay.
they're all different and they're gonna roll back at in different amounts. And then every year a maximum amount is.
That makes sense. I got you. Thank you.
Yeah, so, based on how the different townships are developing and new growth and things like that, they're all different. Things are much different in Weldon and Colfax than they are towards, Frankfurt, for instance. And so that's why they all look a little different now. They all started the same, but over the years, everyone's grown a little differently. And so that is factored into the rollbacks.
Okay.
I think when we get those L4029s from you, there's that other sheet that says all the different fractions for the different
Right.
townships and stuff to
Yep.
factor it by. I always wondered where those numbers came from.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Yeah, so
I
you wanna go through how it's last year plus this year divided by blah, blah, blah.
How to figure out what rollback
She's got
mean.
it. Yeah. So it is, the prior year's taxable value minus any losses. And then you're going to multiply that by the rate of inflation. And then it has to be divided by the current year's taxable value minus any additions. So in the end, really, other than taking in the fact of the, rate of inflation, you're comparing last year's taxable value to this year's. And if you produce more taxable value, have to roll back, then to then kind of remain the same.
Right, so the whole idea is to try to stabilize
Right.
what the community sees on their tax bill versus 2,000, 3,000, 3,100, 4,000. The idea, and that's the whole intent of this when it was put in place years ago at the state level, was to offer some stability to those in the state, which is respected and, had great intentions.
Makes sense.
The indefinite piece is what's caught Benzie County kind of in a weird spot. Because there's never been this opportunity to go back up. It's always going down. Whereas most other counties now have taken that action to go out to the voters every so many years to ask to go back up. Now, obviously, the go back up doesn't have to be to the top. They determine that. And so that'll be one of the items we are talking about. And I wanted to make a point that, there's kind of two paths that we have to look at here. There's that indefinite piece and how do we address this indefinite piece and do we? And then there's if we're going to recommend a raise in any sort of millage rate, how much? What's the necessary need? So there's almost two paths here and almost two recommendations.
Or not.
Or not, exactly. So there's almost two recommendations that could come from this committee. It's to address that indefinite piece and then also to address the number itself.
Do we know what that number is?
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
So,
It's up to
but we
us.
could, I mean, we could go to the voters to fix the indefinite portion and then, but leave, and obviously there's trust involved.
Yep.
Moving forward from there, but without an increase, correct? I mean, that could,
Yeah. This body could make the recommendations to the Board of Commissioners and say, we recognize that for the 2024 tax year that the general operating millage is 3.2961, which is a rollback from last year. But you could make the recommendation that that number's good. However, we need to address this indefinite piece. There needs to be opportunity in 4 years or 5 years for the county to ask the voters for some sort of change to that 3.2961. And so the recommendation could be to keep it at the 2024 value, but to reset in 3 years or whatever timeline you're looking at, to at least give the county that opportunity to go back to the voters in whatever time frame and say, hey, we talked about this, we heard you, here are the needs, and this is why we need to do this, and this is why we're asking you for maybe an increase at that point.
If we were to do something like that, how do we address the individual townships portion that comes into that?
Well,
Like within the ballot proposal language, how do we do that?
That would be an interesting one because they're all different. So
yeah.
we would have to ask legal how to do that.
I think you just do it all together and then they'd all be on their own.
Right.
Right.
Because then at that point, once we release that, if it happens,
Mhm.
then everybody would individually address their
their
own
Yeah.
in the future.
Mm-hmm. So that could be a recommendation of this committee. So it's a matter of when you say how much, what do you want to recommend to the community? Do I've heard both sides of the coin. A lot of people really like the a la carte menu,
Mhm.
but then there's a lot of people that think, gosh, that's silly. And so, which side of the coin are we going to try to appeal to, with whatever you do?
Right.
If it's try to get rid of this a la carte menu of 12 millages, well, we have to say, okay, we're going to pull in X, Y, and Z into the general fund, get rid of those special millages. They'd be then part of the general fund, which would warrant this increase in the general operating millage. Now, if you
Or if we
say-
decided not to,
If you're gonna keep the a la carte,
Right.
then it's,
But fix the indefinite portion,
Hmm.
then things would just,
stay status quo for now.
for now, but
Mhm.
leave that ability for the future,
Well,
right?
that addresses that trust issue that seems to be the recurring
Mm.
theme, the trust from the taxpayers of the county in
Yes.
what the county is then able to do and what the townships are going to do once
Yeah.
that
But
becomes.
it does have to
voted
go
up.
before the voters, though. I mean, if you're gonna
Mhm.
reset, it's, or,
Period.
And that's what I mean, because then you're addressing,
yeah, you're right.
taking
right,
off the
right.
indefinite part, but then you're giving it back to the voters every few years
Yeah,
anyway, which
and you,
takes care of that trust issue, in my opinion.
yeah, I mean, if it became like this recurring in front of the voters over time, the community would understand what it means, what happens when this happens, what does this money go for? You know, it helps to build that education piece in the community because they're seeing it more. You know, a great deal of our community has never seen this millage language because it's been 42 years.
Well, and that's been the biggest concern that we've heard at our meetings and stuff is that it's gonna just open up right back up to 5.29 and then all the townships are gonna be 1.21.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's not.
it's too big.
It's not there's other options. It's not a do or die.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that, so.
Exactly. No, it doesn't. You guys could recommend anything, whatever you feel is fit to the
Mhm.
Board of Commissioners.
There's just
But
more
I
than
guess
one
it's a
piece
matter
here.
of, we have to settle on, do we want to try to address this various array of special millages? Do we want to address the à la carte menu and bundle, as the term has been put out there? Or is it keep that, but address expanded services? What are you gonna tackle?
Yeah.
And so in here, I, kind of started writing out this list of expanded services. Various capital needs, obviously, over time, as the money has, not grown at the rate of inflation per se, things have been deferred. Our rooftop units, for instance, it was cold, very cold downstairs last winter for a couple of months because one died. And it should have been replaced years before that, and it died, and because of COVID was on back order. So that was pleasantful for Brianne and her office. Roof evaluation, we have leaks, roofs are very expensive, rather than, it's been a while and it's due again, very expensive. Where do we come up with that money? There's windows, we have windows that the seals are separating, so we have cold air coming into the building. So there's a lot of these sort of capital needs that have just been deferred and we'll get through because we need to spend the money on this or that, road patrol, we're working on that to expand that to 24 hours. We're enhancing our court security because we know that's a need in the world that we live in. Security's, more needed than it was before, which is a bit bad. We've heard a lot of dialogue from various townships about countywide planning and zoning. Is that something the county brings back and, has a part in? Right now, they don't, really. There's tons of water and sewer opportunities. We all know in the situation that, Beulah's in and Benzonia is looking at things. And is there opportunities for the county to partner and be part of that? I don't know. Benzie County is, people come here for our parks and recreation, and we manage them solely with volunteers. And that worked, it's worked, but it's not going to continue to work. We cannot continue to acquire these properties
No.
and keep these properties with only the help of volunteers. It's not fair to our community. It's not fair to our
It's not gonna
volunteers.
work either.
And it just doesn't work, so we need to address that at some point. Economic and community development, and that's everything from housing and jobs to an industrial park to, all these things. So, those are just some of the items. I just don't know where you guys are leaning.
You are what, part of this board,
What?
us guys.
Us guys, sorry, but I don't want to do all the talking.
I hear you.
You're the one with the most knowledge, though.
Yeah,
When it comes to-
and we appreciate it.
I guess I want to hear from you guys now.
Happens to the delinquent funds when property taxes aren't paid, the county can start the process of taking them
Right.
from them. And then
Right.
if that person doesn't file, there's a new law, of course, that they file to get the difference back, what overage is due. Where did all that money from before that go? that's still in a fund waiting to be used, or how is it used?
Tax foreclosure fund.
The delinquent tax revolving fund.
Yeah,
Tax
It's,
foreclosure.
yeah, well, so good news, we didn't foreclose on anybody this year. Yay, first time in many, many years. So that's very helpful. The new law does allow, if we did foreclose, the owner to file an intent.
Yep.
For the surplus funds. We are, as far as the funds from prior, those, we determine a surplus here at the county,
Mhm.
and then that surplus is given to whichever fund. Normally, it's the general fund for retirement, or it's the capital fund to fix the things like the stuff on the roof. I believe the way the law works is we have to wait 3 years before we're allowed to bring in whatever extra surplus comes in.
sure.
But now with the new law of intent to claims and
Mhm.
the proceeds, that money will sit there to go out to the people that
Right.
filed that intent.
Sure.
So we don't. Yeah, that's where we're at this
Do we
point.
know what those numbers are, amount wise, cash wise, by chance?
How much is left at this moment? I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been, well, how long have we've been doing this since 2020, so I guess we're at that point. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything that the county is short on providing currently? Services, having a hard time paying for jail or animal control, and anything, or, anything,
Yeah.
is that what?
Yeah, so one of the items that, we're making it work. So for court security, right now, we have 3 part-time individuals who are serving as bailiffs, and that's a brand new adventure for this fiscal year. But we recognize the need of court security and the security of this building, really. They're here 8 to 5, and they're wonderful gentlemen. But to continue that, these gentlemen that are doing this, it's not long-time careers for them. They're retired individuals who are helping us out essentially. So to maintain that court security, eventually it's gonna have to be full-time. We can't fund it. I mean, there's just not enough money for that. The part-time works because there's not that extra overhead of benefits and overtime and things like that. So the part-time is working for now. But it was hard to find those individuals to work a part-time gig. So there's that specifically. The community really wants 24-hour road patrol, and that was brought up all over Facebook last fall, I want to say,
Where are we?
about 24-hour road patrol. And we have found the money to make it work. We're still trying to get all the staff trained, and that's supposed to be rolling out here very soon,
Yeah, I
May,
thought it
June
was,
time.
actually, I thought it was
Middle of
happening
May.
a while back.
Oh, well,
I thought they
Yeah.
said
I'm not
the
in control of that.
Right.
14th or 15th of May, I thought you said.
I'm not in control of that.
Right.
So, but I don't know how long that we're gonna have the funding to maintain 24-hour road patrol. Adding those hours, we've added an additional deputy with the help of Central Wellness, who's paying for an additional deputy for us. But adding those additional hours is a huge hit. So we have, we're getting our folks to agree to longer shifts in the grand scheme of it to try to cover that 24 hours. And we're gonna make it work for at least this fiscal year, and hopefully next fiscal year. We're getting into budgeting now, and we're hoping that we can make that work. But the longevity of maintaining that 24-hour road patrol gig, it's very expensive. Public safety, they warrant it, but they're the most expensive part of your budget. They just are. And I'm not saying that that's a bad stain or anything. I fully respect law enforcement, and half my family are cops. And so, but it's just what it is. And so I don't know how long we can maintain that 24-hour presence. And we're in a world where it's absolutely necessary. It just is. So those are some of the things that I don't know how long we can make those last. The other ones that you brought up, the jail, animal control, right now they're special millages. And
Right.
so, the jail right now,
Oh, right.
we need an increase in funding for there. The millage that we obtained in 2022 paid for jail operations as they stand. But then the Michigan Department of Corrections came in and said, you shall hire 2 more people. Well, that's $200,000 more that old millage now does not cover.
Which is covered by the general fund.
which will have to be covered by the general fund or the small fund balance that we've worked 3 years to build up.
What that's gone, it's gone.
And it, yeah, and so to pay for the remainder of those folks, it's gonna deplete the fund balance down to almost nothing again.
How's the fund balance currently?
For the jail is at like 6% fund balance. The general fund is high. It's about 29% since we've moved funding, the ARPA funding out.
Right.
Our policy allows for that funding to come down to 25% for one-time uses such as debt liability specifically, or capital needs.
And that's due to ARPA though, I mean, or.
And it is, and most of it is due to the free money
Right.
that the communities received during the time of COVID, and that money is going away. We're
One
working to
time.
spend it wisely, but it's one-time funding.
Are you doing the reporting for that stuff?
Yeah, it's all done. I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fun.
It's all done.
It's a lot of information to sink your mind into.
Hmm. It is.
Was all this stuff available to the public? This,
Yeah, this packet's
Down
been
the-
posted since I sent it to all of you,
Mhm.
so it's been out on the community. And I tried to put like a big icon on the home page that says tax advisory, stay up to date or something. So that it's not getting missed. We don't have social media though, so I didn't blast it there.
that would just not be, it would,
Probably not.
What's the percentage increase if we decide to go and recommend up to the 5.29
29,
from the current 3.338?
3.296.
296. What's what's that percentage increase? Is it 50% increase? 80% increase?
Oh, you're talking about the difference.
The difference between the
the
two?
math and
It's been a long day. $46 roughly.
Roughly 46.
a big increase.
Yeah, it is. No. Now, that
Did I
doesn't
do the math
necessarily,
wrong?
it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a 40%,
Google did it.
46% increase in property taxes. It's just the difference between the two. That's the percentage of increase.
Could, yeah. What, yeah, it could be in,
And it's a big jump. You
agreed.
know, just to look at the numbers, it's a pretty huge jump at one time.
So Google's wrong? Google's wrong.
8%.
Google AI is wrong.
What?
This says the difference is 46% is what Google AI says.
Weird.
See, that's why we can't depend on robots.
Brienne's the math whiz over there.
Out of calc-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank-
I've been doing
Old
math
too.
all day. I can't
Yeah,
do it.
use an adding machine. Math is, right? We use adding machines.
So I guess, the two paths that I mentioned, is there agreement here that one recommendation would be to get rid of the indefinite or keep the indefinite? That to me seems like the easier,
I think
Your
that's,
task at
for me,
first.
that's the thing that, for me anyway, needs to be dealt with. I don't know that I've come to an opinion on, you know, the levy
No.
itself. But I know, I mean, being one of two counties in the state that has that, you know, that's in this situation is bothersome. I mean, so regardless of anything else, I mean, I think that should be dealt with, but beyond that, I don't know yet. I don't have an opinion yet, anyway. But I'm glad to hear that that's at least an option. If nothing else.
If it's not done now, it needs to, at some point down the road, has to be dealt with.
Mhm. Yeah, and we've met with some community folks too, and I've said to them, right now, we're okay. We'll figure it out right now, and no services will be expanded, nothing will be cut at this point. This year's we're okay for the fiscal year we're in the middle of, and for next fiscal year, I'm guessing we're gonna be okay, borderline okay. But once I get into year 2 and 3, things start to get a little tighter.
Mhm.
And by year 4 and 5, things are looking rough. Not saying we're bankrupt or anything, but things are gonna be really tight. And it's gonna be looking at, okay, how do we condense and compress to meet the revenue that we have?
So if we dealt with the indefinite part and did not request or recommend an increase of any kind, if in a year or two an increase is necessary, it then has to go back to the voters again, correct?
Yeah, so
Okay,
no matter what, it's gonna have to go to the voters. Once you get rid of that indefinite piece, whatever timeline is set up, it goes to the voters then on that time.
You have to put a term on it
Doesn't have-
probably in that
you
language,
can't
right?
go
Yep.
before that, you can't go like within that term, say
You could,
you could,
we'd reestablish this whole body.
Yeah.
And yes, you could.
okay.
But if you just establish the timeline now, it's just like that natural,
Mhm.
every so many years it goes before your voters.
Well, the impression that the rise in taxable value accounts for the rollback and it just makes everything hunky-dory is not right. It doesn't account for
Correct.
the costs of everything, our medical and EMS costs and
Mm.
fire department costs that have skyrocketed. To get a new fire truck is million,
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah, a new ambulance is $236,000, and then you have
It
to
doesn't
equip it.
account for that and the cost and everything else going up, like we all know privately at home too. It's the same running a business such as the county or us with townships.
Mhm.
And it's, those two things don't always combat each other and you just come out up here. Sometimes you come out down here.
Right.
And at some point you have to address that. And it's been 42 years. I
Yeah,
mean,
82.
this has never been addressed. It's been 42 years. So
Exactly.
at
So-
least that part of it needs to be addressed as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so when you look at this spreadsheet and you see the difference of what could have been collected versus what was collected, there's no denying that we've received additional funding every
Yep.
year because of taxable value increasing. We've received, but what we could have received is what's a lot smaller.
Mhm.
Because yes, taxable value is going up by the 5% or what have you, but then that rollback comes into play. So while your taxable value is higher, the number you're timesing it by is smaller now. So
Yep.
you're closing that gap, and that's where we find ourselves in trouble in the long run because we're not keeping up anymore because
Yes.
there's that gap. And that's where you find yourself in trouble. Because you're just not
And
keeping
I think
up.
that's a very misunderstood,
Part of it.
that's just how it works and
Right.
that's it. It
Yep.
just makes it fine.
Right.
I think that's just a very misunderstood
Mhm.
portion of it.
Well, and there's no guarantee that the taxable value is gonna grow at 5% every year either. We
Absolutely.
could go back
I
down
mean,
to
we haven't gone
1.5 and
Yeah, till the
At
last,
any
till a couple
time.
years ago, we started rolling back again.
Yeah. Yeah, pre-COVID.
For a while,
I
we
mean,
didn't.
yeah,
Mhm.
Barely.
yeah, it was barely 1% for quite a long time.
So yeah, I think that's a very important aspect is removing that indefinite part.
Yeah.
But I'm with him, that other part of it is the,
Tough part.
Well, yeah, I think if we don't if we don't do anything with the levy, then essentially it's back with the voters, like as it always has been. I mean,
Mhm.
nothing changes other than taking that word out that allows us to go to the voters to do that.
Makes
And
it a
I-
little easier.
I think that in that language, if this advisory committee advises the Board of Commissioners to put something like that on the ballot to remove that indefinite factor, that a promise has to come along with it within that language that we are not going to do this, we are going to do this.
Well,
We
they
can
can't-
only do
They
this.
can't though, I mean, without the vote, without a vote of the public. you
Yeah, that's what I'm
still
saying,
can't.
is in that ballot language, the number's gotta be put in there, it can't, and it can't be 5.29.
Right.
I mean, that's not I'm a tax collector. I can't do that to my. You
I'm a
know, I think
taxpayer.
we,
I don't
yep,
wanna see it.
exactly. Yep. Yep. I collect my own taxes and I
Mhm.
wouldn't want my taxes to raise by that much. So you know, for us to know, yeah, it's very important to remove that and then to see the difference in those two numbers, like I'm not going anywhere near that number.
Too high.
Yep.
You'd have to get rid of every special millage, I
Mhm.
think, to fully justify it.
But again,
Yep.
that would be the will of the people to get to that point. I
Yep.
mean, it would have to be a vote, so.
Yep.
And as long as everybody knows that, I think that makes sense.
But we have to advise on what we also think would be a practical suggestion and what would pass and what would work for the
Yeah.
county.
What do you think is appropriate?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cause to put
Which-
something crazy in front of the voters that we
Well,
know isn't gonna
Could be zero,
fly.
it could be zero, though. Could be nothing, could be no increase.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
Cause I'm kind of leaning towards that as I'm sitting here right now is remove the indefinite part, but then that promise that, okay, they're not, your taxes aren't going up. This millage rate is not going up. It's gonna roll back like it has, but now there's this
There's
sunset.
opportunity
that-
to
Yeah.
address
And that's why,
there's- yeah,
that's why I don't think
We
you
can
need,
come back and discuss this in a few years
that's
and
why I don't think you
when-
need a
when the
promise
world
because
is
there's
settled
not a,
down.
there's not a.
the promise is within the language. That's
I-
what I'm saying.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Because you're not gonna sell it unless the promise comes with it and it has to be a practical
Absolutely.
suggestion. And like you said, not collect more than what you
What's
need,
needed.
Right.
Right.
because we've done that before too.
Yeah.
Just didn't
lower.
levy the full amount.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's a couple of townships that don't levy their max.
Mhm.
There.
On your on the one spreadsheet charts. Looks like you spend the same amount that you get in. Is that, and I noticed that for every year, there isn't any more spent than gained, it's not.
You're required to present, or adopt and present a balanced budget. That's part of state law. And so, you will always see this general fund revenue and general fund expenses balance because we legally cannot
Right,
adopt an unbalanced
Mhm.
budget.
I see.
So that's why it's always balanced.
Okay.
And so just to paint a little picture of how budgeting goes, so I sit down with rather large spreadsheets with all the department heads and elected officials, and we go through their individual budgets. Kelly will have the opportunity to do it for the first time this year, and Brianne the second time. And so we sit down and we go through and we talk about the needs of every single department. Where are you at with things? Where did this contracted service come in? Where did this need come in? Did this happen? Why didn't it happen? And those sorts of things. And we look at the last couple of years of the trend, and then we determine what's going to be appropriate for the following year. After I've sat down with all those various different department heads and elected officials, I put it all together in a computer system and I look at my bottom line, and sometimes I go, oh, and then other times I'm like, well, not too bad.
Sure.
And I've had one year where I'm like, gosh, this is looking really good. And I had another year where I'm calling up elected officials and saying, yeah, you're not getting that this year, not this year, maybe next year. So it really just depends on, where things are going to come out in the end. And so I have, the clerk's office, we delayed an additional person for years, because the money wasn't there for
Right.
it. And so, you can't do that. And so we make those hard decisions, at the staff level to balance that budget. And then the draft budget that we present then to the board of commissioners is a balanced budget. The elected officials and department heads then have the opportunity to come to the Board of Commissioners and maybe ask for those things that I said, yeah, probably not. And then the Board of Commissioners can direct me to then put that into the budget, and then I have to make somebody else upset by pulling their
Right.
item. So it's a delicate dance. It's a pull and a grab and all the things. And it just boils down to, okay, what is going to best serve our community? Is this additional staff person going to better serve our community, or do we need to contract out this service and hire a lower grade staff perhaps?
Mhm.
Those are the things we talk through and consider. And we've done that. Last year specifically in one of our departments, rather than hiring that third person at that higher level, we contracted out and hired a third person at a lower level to try to bridge that gap. And so we've done that with a few different things. Just trying to make things work and to really do, what's in the best interest of the county.
Sure. Do we know what the percentage if your average out of everybody in the county, the total population and the total amount of property taxes received, and I know property taxes are very differently from area to area, person to person, property to property. If you just took an average of the population in 1990, and the total amount brought in, what is that amount per person is paying at that time? Just an average, not specifically, because everybody pays different.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that number today?
Well, it wouldn't be by person, I think it'd be by resident property, right? Is what
Yeah,
you're
by
really,
property.
it'd be by property, not person.
Well, the people living in the county full-time, they would just want to know, well, I've been paying 2,000 back then, and now I'm paying 5,000 now. Even though people with vacation homes and second homes don't necessarily live in them. So you're going to divide it out by parcel, and some parcels are bigger than others, and you can't get, in my opinion, you couldn't get a real number of per person
No,
of what that amount would
Got it.
be,
that'd be tough.
but it's not impossible.
I mean, you could always do an
I
average.
think- Yeah, we
Just
could
wouldn't
do
be
that.
accurate.
We could pull the numbers, basically how many properties were 20 years ago and the total taxes collected versus how many properties there are this year and the total taxes collected. And we could break that into an average.
Sure. I'd like to see those numbers just to let, keep people informed of what's more information, the better, what I'm saying. Then there was talk about rolling it back to the full amount with rolling in some of the special millages into that. So again, not exactly the numbers, but if we decided to do that or recommend that to the commissioners, then I think that I can't remember what the difference is off the top of my head between the new one and the old one. Millage number between the two is
About 2 mils.
about 2 mils. So any of these other ones that are a special election, we rolled them in only at the 2% or at the 2 mil increase or approximately.
Yeah, you could only roll in about 2 mil if you're gonna increase the general fund by 2 mil.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't increase the taxpayers' output.
No,
No,
you'd
it's just-
essentially break even.
Right.
Education.
Huh?
Education of the public or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's that opportunity too, if you want to do the bundling, it's a matter of what do you bundle and how much, and is there still a little left over to support any changes in the general fund?
That's a little tricky.
I-
We kind
I-
of hit
I
on that
feel like-
last
Yeah.
week because
feel
it's just
like-
they're all staggered and they expire at different times.
Yeah, I
and
feel
then
like we don't.
you
touch
risk
that.
losing everything that you just
Mhm.
bundled if it doesn't pass again. And
Yeah,
feel
you
like
have
we
to
don't
set
touch
them to
it.
0.
I felt like we got somewhere last week when we were talking about the bundling. It was like, that's,
And,
that could
and,
quickly get
and
messy.
It could.
Well, and you're not getting any further ahead, like you said, if you're rolling into it the same amount of mills that
Yeah.
you're multiplying it out by the same taxable value, so you're not getting any further ahead by doing that.
those all on 5-year renewals or 5-year.
No,
No, ours
Accept-
are all staggered
Yeah,
now.
they're on that last.
Bringing forward so many in 2022 was a bit
Yeah,
scary. And so when we did that, we staggered them all. So it's about 2. It's 2.
What's the length of them? Are they all the same?
They all
length?
vary.
yeah.
They all
staggered.
vary as well.
Yeah.
Because remember,
On
we
your house
voted
form
on
29, it tells you when they expire.
22. See, like all these were voted
I
on
got it
August of 22.
Yep. And then they were 4,
Then this
6,
is when
8.
they
Yeah.
expire.
Yeah. We staggered them because that was a much more appealing to the eye to stagger.
Yeah, that makes
sorts of
sense.
thing.
Is it the Maples bond that's gonna be paid off or the Maples?
The Maples bond will expire and and once the bond's paid off, that one just goes
Yep.
away.
Yep,
Yep.
okay.
And then it's just the Maples operating who's left.
So when that one expires in 29, is that the plan that it's gonna go all the way through 29? 2029, that's what
We're
it says on the,
hoping not.
Yeah, we're
we don't
hoping,
really want it
we're
to.
hoping like 27, 28.
okay.
Mhm. Yeah,
We were
we'd
just
like to-
talking about that
Just
earlier.
sure.
Yeah, we were talking about
Okay.
that today, actually.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
So we set a meeting for next week already, didn't we?
Yeah, May 2nd.
Yeah. Is that right? 2 o'clock?
But
Next week?
next week, yeah, a little earlier in the day. Are you guys all set on discussion then?
I
Yeah,
am going,
I think
I've
so,
got to,
yep.
I've got to go in about 15, so I just wanted to make sure,
Oh, okay.
just in case.
So we will get some of the average tax amounts, just kind of averaging everything out. We'll have that information for next time. Is there anything else that you'd want me to have next time?
I'm still trying to get through everything that we've,
Yeah.
that we
Okay,
You,
received last
you gave
week.
us a lot of good stuff last time, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
I mean, I think that's,
that's the information we
it's,
need.
yeah, to, yeah.
Well, I won't plan to gather any more information then. That's perfect.
What would be the best way to, put a poll out for the citizens to say yes or no? Because if you have, 100 people say no on this poll, then is it a good idea to keep going with it,
Mm-hmm.
Because
So-
that's the general pulse of the taxpayer then.
Yeah. So in the
Difficult.
past, so like with the ARPA survey that we had published back in 22, I think I actually worked with MSU Extension. They have a like a survey system that they use called Qualtrics. And they helped me build that survey for free, and then I could distribute it and everyone could do a survey. And I'm sure that they would be willing to work with us again on that.
That'd be good,
Yeah.
but
Is that something you want me to look into then?
if you would.
Everyone's good with that?
I think putting it on the
I think
ballot
it's-
is the,
I think
is the
it's-
survey.
I think it's
but-
difficult to do a survey that's going to be accurate, really. So, I mean,
Well, when everybody votes, that's the real survey.
That's
Yeah.
what, yeah,
But
Yeah.
At the same time, if you have a huge proportion against it,
it all depends on what it is you're recommending.
and how it's
also.
explained
like-
and,
then
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a big difference between just dealing with the situation of this indefinite portion as opposed to that as well as an increase or anything else. So, I mean, there's a big difference there. So
right?
we'd have to know what that is first,
Mhm.
obviously.
Oh,
But-
no on the survey?
Yeah, I don't know. We can talk about it.
Any other discussions? Open up for public comment. Anybody want to comment?
I know how to spell his name now.
Reichenbach, Crystal Lake Township. Okay, so I'm on this page, that one right there, that spreadsheet, so you know what when I'm on. So that 2023 millage proceeds, is that the actual number of dollars you guys got in?
Hold on. Okay,
6,867,000.
so that's total across the county.
Yeah, the
So
whole
the
county.
county itself was 5.4, and then the townships were all various numbers because of their millage rates all being different. So that's total across the county, but that didn't all come to the county government.
Okay, but that's how much was taken in the whole county.
Yeah, across the county.
Okay.
And that includes your ISD as well.
So that number next to it, that 10,977,000.
Yes,
That's if the Headley, if this unlock you're talking about, the total 5.29 was unlocked?
yeah, so if there would have ever been a reset and everyone went back to 1.21
Yeah.
and or 5.29, that would have been the total projected.
The difference between those two numbers
the
is a
4.1.
60% increase.
Yep, so
Just
in the
divide 'em up.
red, the 4.1.
60%.
But it also requires a vote of the public. to
Each
so-
time.
I understand that.
Yeah, I'm just.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The, so would that reflect, if you voted for that total pile, would that mean your taxes would go up 60%?
Yeah,
Wouldn't
so
it?
it would be the difference.
Yeah, it's 60%
Between the two
increase in
millage rates.
each individual's taxes.
Uh-huh.
Lot.
Okay. So that number 6,867,000, you compare that to 2022, the year before, that's 8.2% more money you guys got in the county from one year to the next. 8.2% that you collected, correct?
So you have to they stand individually though. So you're looking at an average across the county, but
Yeah.
it's different for every single township on the percentage that they're gaining. So you can look at it as a total county,
That's what I'm looking at.
but individually, not necessarily,
Mhm.
because the county is different from each individual township based on their rates. And so one township
I'm
may
more
be
about
8, but
less.
one may be 5.
As a
So,
whole year,
yeah.
as a whole.
But the difference in total is 8.2% from 2022 to the 2023. Is there a projection for based on the new taxables that went up 5%? Is there a projection for what the income is going to be for 2024?
We have not gotten there.
It's
Looking at
pretty
it,
safe to assume it's going to be 5% or more up.
Yeah.
On your
I
I
input.
mean, if you're looking
Okay.
at from year to year, I
Yeah.
think it's safe to assume it's gonna be
Mhm.
More
above.
than that.
Yeah.
With building and with sales, okay?
Mhm.
So you got 8% from last year, you got 5.3 from the year before. So you've been. the
You also,
input
though,
from-
have to consider all the adjustments that might be made.
Mhm.
There's a tax collection report out there on the
Mhm.
treasurer's thing, and the taxable value could fall because some people might be moving back here. Maybe a lot of these vacationers are gonna come back and they're gonna reduce that 18 mils.
Mhm.
Your SEV, I mean, both of them could fall. And so
Yeah.
we've lost money because now all of the snowbirds decided we're gonna just come live here.
There's also cost of living and inflation.
So,
through the roof.
correct.
Yeah, inflation has hit everyone. I mean,
Absolutely.
inflation has put up your costs.
Right,
Right.
It's put our taxes up.
right,
And then the citizens' costs are up too.
right.
So your costs are up and you're asking for more taxes from people who have, if you're on a fixed income
Mhm.
and your taxes go up 60%.
Yep.
And the only thing you're on is your social security, which they're talking about restricting that in a few years. We're talking 6 years out. Restricting that, you're gonna put a bunch of people in a hard spot. Okay, on
Agreed.
making that bill.
Yep.
Agreed.
Okay?
Yep.
You're gonna have situation in a lot of places in this country where taxes are so high that people are having to sell their homes because they can't afford on what they've got coming in
That's why it's
to
not,
live in that house.
that's not my intention to do anything like
Yeah,
that.
I
that's what we're
trust-
tasked
Right.
with, is
Trust your intention.
doing what's
Right.
the
All right.
smartest thing
Right.
for our citizens, because we're citizens in Benzie County
Right.
too,
Right.
so.
Yeah, I believe you.
Well, I am.
Yeah, I believe you.
She can't sit on a township board unless she is.
Mhm.
No, but you're right. I
So
mean,
what will, if you unlock it, what will control how much of that unlock you guys use? Just your decision?
So it's all determined at our public meetings where community is invited
Mhm.
to, give public comment and such. Obviously, you can individually lobby your representatives, whether it's the Board of Commissioners or your township officials.
Mhm.
You can talk to them about the budget and where things land.
But you guys will
Uh,
decide it,
But every year, the Board of Commissioners
Not us.
and the township boards
not you
have
guys.
the authority to
us.
set the
All
levy.
we're gonna do is
where it
make a
needs-
recommendation.
We are only an advisory committee to the
Board
Board
of
of Commissioners
Commissioners.
regarding this topic.
Okay.
Mhm,
Right.
All
Bring it
the,
to the town.
the county, Benzie County Board of Commissioners would decide their millage rate
mhm.
Yep.
and what they want to put on the ballot. All of the townships would decide their millage rates and how they want to address those on their own ballots.
Okay, so-
That's
And in
not
the
what this
end, the
committee
people are making the
does.
choice.
Yep, and then the people of Benzie County get to vote on that.
Okay.
Yep.
Mhm.
We're only a recommendation board.
Now, the Headley rollback that is what you're talking about that has been restricting your input every year
Mhm.
has been going on, but have not the mills been going up, but going in the opposite direction every year? Mills that we've been assessed? We get vote up, we go on another, animal control or something, and we get another millage. We keep getting these add-ons, so the mills have been going up. Your Headley's going down, ticking down, but the mills have been going up.
that's why
Well, I
they've been
think
going
That's
up.
why
Yeah.
they've been
Yeah.
going up is because
Yeah.
the
They needed
community is
supplemental.
demanding animal control. The community demands drug enforcement. The community is
Yeah.
demanding
Yeah.
school and youth resource officer. So to provide that to the community, the county has put these millages forward
Mhm.
because the community has recognized those things as important needs,
Mhm.
but we can't financially support those needs without your funds.
Mhm.
And those have
That's
all
why
been
we
put on
went there.
ballots though,
So
too.
those are
Those
gonna
have
be
all
put
been
on
voted
ballot.
on by the
Mhm.
people too.
Yep, the
That's-
community
yeah,
votes on those.
Put it all on the ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all goes on the ballot,
Yep.
yeah.
There's
All
a,
right, well, you've cleared up some things, but it was an 8.2% increase in money that came into the county from the year before to this.
in many, communities, some of these extra millages are paid through the general fund of the counties,
Mhm.
which, yeah.
But we've
Thank
been
you.
blocked in doing that. What is
Yeah.
the other county in Michigan that,
I
Still
was trying to
doesn't-
look that up today and I
I
couldn't
can't
find it.
believe that statistic, that there's only two that
Yeah.
have
There
not
was
gotten out of this
8
yet.
at
Yeah.
one time
Yeah.
that had never reset. But in most counties, your jail operating is out of your general
Yep.
fund. In most counties, animal control is out of your general fund. Drug enforcement, all those come out of your general fund in most other communities. Whereas we do have those special millages because we can't sustain them in our general fund.
Yep.
And the community has indicated that they have they want those
Yeah.
services.
And I like them.
Anybody else wants to get up and speak?
It's 8.5% in 23. And there was no Headley that year. So what was the rate of inflation that year, just out of curiosity?
Last year?
1.79. 1.079.
Yeah, 1.079. So that would have been the ratio that was used. The inflation itself, I want to say exceeded 8 or 9% in
did.
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the numbers Rich was asking about, the 5.4 million or the 6.8867 million, those include education, right?
No, those specifically, the only education piece included in there is going to be the ISD. Those numbers
only one there.
only include the townships and county, and then the ISD, it doesn't include
18 mils.
Schools and-
It doesn't
Benzie,
include
School
any of-
operating.
Right,
Doesn't
there's-
include
yeah.
school
Yeah.
Any of those
operating.
line items that are.
That's
right,
attached.
yeah. Those are
Yeah,
collected
'cause-
by the
Okay,
schools.
right.
The tax collection report I mentioned earlier out there, we collected 54 million. Yeah, or 50
as a whole.
as a
As a
whole,
whole.
Mhm.
as a
Okay.
whole with schools and everything that's on your,
Yeah.
on your tax bill.
And then she
Yep.
divvies up to the other organizations.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Mail them out.
Excuse me, it was 1.079.
1.079.
Anybody else?
Come on down.
Just one, promise.
No, you're fine.
I just was wondering, is there any unfunded liabilities that you guys are watching? Is there a number for those?
Good question.
So the county does have pension debt, the unfunded liability from that standpoint. Ours is separate from, say, the road commission and the Maple, so theirs are separate. And we do have a hefty number. I haven't
Yeah.
looked at it yet this year. But we were under 70% funded as of last year.
Okay. And there's cost of livings going into every one of those pensions, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You
Unfortunately.
know what the unfunded liability is for the United States of
No.
America? And we're talking the feds, $162 trillion.
Brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah.
I buy it.
I don't even think.
We're talking about a
Unreal.
big reckoning probably coming up for all of us in the near future. Thank you.
No doubt.
Anybody else? You're welcome to speak. You get a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I will second. What time is it?
Motion,
629.
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
So the next meeting is next week, everybody. Next week on May 2nd at 2 PM in this room. And it'll be on Zoom and YouTube as